I'm gonna share 3 pro tips you need to incorporate into your makeup today. And if there's one thing I'm good at is explaining things, keeping it simple and keeping it real. There's no need for excessive steps. Let's get into it. For tip number 1, I'm gonna show you how to cover up your dark spots and or imperfections without having to use a color corrector. I know. It's a whole nother step. You have to make sure that you're blending it properly because when you apply your foundation on top of it, oftentimes that area shifts in color because maybe you applied way too much of the salmon color corrector. It becomes a whole freaking thing. It doesn't have to be that hard, girl. For this particular situation, all you really are going to need is a foundation that matches you pretty much spot on. In my case, I have the Cover Effects Power Play Foundation. I am in G60 or the True Match by L'Oreal in W6.5. I know, she looks disgusting, don't judge me. Because I will since the pump is broken, I will pour some out and actually sculpt my brows because it looks like my skin just perfect. And you also want it to be a foundation that has at least medium coverage. For today, I'll use my gross looking L'Oreal. You don't need a lot, all you need is a finger. I want you to take a little dab of the foundation, literally a little spot. Leave it there, leave it alone. Just so that you guys can see what I'm talking about, I'll go ahead and cover up my little sunspots. You want the pigment to start drying down. You know, let's go here. We're gonna leave this situation 100% alone. I'm gonna go over and start applying like my concealer because the next one is the reason why I say there's no need for baking. There really, really isn't. I've applied my concealer. I'm literally doing the very same thing. I'm going to just let it sit. I'm gonna keep working on tip number 1. I'm gonna grab my finger like it's going somewhere. I know. With my finger, I am gently going to tap and diffuse. It doesn't have to be perfect. Tap and diffuse that pigment. Now that it started drying down, do you see how there's a lot of it still left? You can tell exactly where it is. That's what we want. It's not gonna be perfect, that's fine. All right, and then you really wanna give it a second to set. Once that baby is pretty much set, now you're going to apply the foundation on the rest of the face. I normally just do the 1 pump. This is why I say less is more, because taking these steps, your skin is gonna look airbrushed, it's gonna look flawless, but you can still cover up all of your imperfections. If you want additional coverage, like if you want a heavier coverage, then of course go in with a brush, but I like that second skin kind of look. I want it to look and feel lightweight on the skin. You don't see celebrities go over to the red carpet looking like they have a mask. Their makeup looks flawless. It looks like air on their skin. And yeah, their makeup artist made sure they took their time and put all their energy into skin prep and application, but they're making it a point to cover up any imperfections most of the time prior to. I don't really see too many makeup artists walk around with color correctors unless their model has extreme challenges with their skin, and at that point you have no choice. But for every day, who wants to put salmon on their face every day? This is just so much easier. Do you see how much lighter and how much more we're still not done, and how much more covered this one, which was the darkest acne spot I've gotten in a while. God, we're looking good. We're still not done, but let me blend out the concealer. Do you see how flawless the skin looks, but it still doesn't look heavy, cakey, too much like a mask? I'm gonna grab my setting powder, grab whichever one you love, you prefer. You are going to dip it into your little powder puff and you're gonna remove the excess. This is gonna work with any powder, but I highly recommend that your powder is a matte, translucent or matte powder with pigment in it. You do not want a powder that has shimmer because the shimmer highlights. Remember, a shimmer is going to highlight, which is the highlighter goes in areas like your cheekbones and your brow bone. When the light hits it, it highlights those areas. So the last thing you want to do is apply anything with luminosity in areas that you're trying to hide. You're trying to mask those extra coverage spots. You're gonna blot the areas where you applied that foundation and let the pigment dry. These little areas here. Am I powdering the entire skin? No. If you have to, go right ahead. Make sure that it's translucent or it matches literally your skin color. That way it doesn't look too off. All right, you guys, and just like that, I mean, look at this skin. Right? For every day, was that not easy? Just add extra foundation, allow the pigment to dry somewhat, blend it out with the finger, let it dry the rest of the way. Add your foundation on top of everything, blend it out super well, and then go in with some setting powder in those specific areas where you needed that extra coverage, and then you're good to go. Moving on to tip number 2. We've already applied our concealer. If you're interested in the concealer I use, it is the Naked Stay Quickie up to 24-hour concealer by Urban Decay. I have 41 NN under the eye. Gonna go ahead and give her another blend. This coverage is going to be very intense. It's not like the highest coverage concealer. However, when I apply my concealer, I like to apply it, let it sit for a minute or two. We're doing the same process as we would do on the rest of the face when you're covering up those dark spots. You want the pigment on the concealer to slightly start to set and dry down. You don't want it to dry down all the way because then it can get a little patchy depending on the formula. You want to give it about 60 seconds and then go in and blend it out. Whether you use a sponge or brush, totally up to you. It is going to differ on how it's going to blend depending on the tool that you use, which is why I love using my sponge. But letting it sit for a little while allows the pigment to start setting and gives you a little more coverage, if not way more coverage, depending on your concealer. This is why we don't have to bake on this channel, because we know the tips and tricks that no one wants to share with you. Now that we've blended out our concealer, we're gonna get our little powder puff. Listen, this is not new stuff. I just never really get into too much detail with you guys because I'm always doing the most and there's so much to fit into a video. I was like, no, I'm gonna dedicate today's video specifically to tips and tricks. The powder I'm using is the Cherry Blossom. What is it? The Easy Bake? Yeah, Easy Bake by Huda because I'm obsessed with it. I am going to remove the excess. I already showed you that. And with whatever's left on my powder puff, I am going to set the concealer. I'm gonna do the same thing on the other side. This is why you guys always say, well, you know, your skin looks perfect or your under eyes are flawless and nice and bright. Well, the beauty of editing is that I am allowed to cut through all these things that in most cases have nothing to do with the video at hand or what I'm showing you guys at hand. But I also know you guys love the tips and tricks, which is why we're doing this today. And if you guys love this, let me know, because then I can do more tips and tricks, more category focused videos if you're interested. And if you need tips and tricks on certain things, let me know in the comment section. Let me know what you need help with so that I can help you. I'm gonna grab a brush and my setting powder for the day. I'm gonna use the pressed powder. Pressed powders are gonna work best for this particular step just because they're easier to use and it's not like they're gonna fall all over the place. It's just easier to manipulate. I do recommend you use a brush for this one versus the powder puff. I'm gonna use my Jaclyn Cosmetics quad because I need to like really get through her. Or you can do something like the Wet n Wild Bare Focus Clarifying Finishing Powder. This one that I have is in the shade Light Medium. And if anything, this shade Light Medium is basically this color. Do you guys see? I didn't notice that until now. Hello. But I do find that the formulas are slightly different. Jaclyn Cosmetics' formula is actually a finer powder, although it's a very finely milled powder. And this one's really good. There's just something about this one. So I am going to grab a brush. Any brush that's small enough to fit under your eye is gonna work. I'm really gonna make sure I pick up product. It's gonna get messy, mija. I'm gonna tap it into the brush versus out. When you tap out, you're tapping your pigment off of the brush. In most cases, that's perfect for the eyeball. If you want the pigment to basically saturate your brush, you don't wanna tap it out, you want the pigment in here, you just want it to kind of like really get in there. So it's not gonna fall everywhere, so I tap it in. By the way, this is a BK Beauty 110 Amaze Balls brush. And I am going to kind of tap and glide. Do you see the brightening? Did we have to bake? No. I'll explain why. Baking is not for everyone. Can we bake here and there? Yes. Is it something that every single person can do? No. I have not dipped back into the pan and look at that brightness right there. We've got the effect as if we've baked, but we don't have this harshness under the eyes that in most cases people end up getting. I may do the same thing. See, this is why you need to have a towel on your lap at all times because it gets messy up in here, but it's so much fun. All you hear on social media is bake, brighten, bake, brighten. But the reality is concealers contain oils. And when you apply a powder on top of a concealer and you really build it, those oils are gonna grab onto that powder and it can and will get clumpy and lumpy and look like really dried cake matter or batter under the eye, and it doesn't look pretty. It doesn't look graceful. Can some people get away with it? Yes. Anyone who has hydrated, youthful under eyes with zero fine lines, have at it. It's gonna look amaze balls. But those of us in our 20s, like later 20s, 30s and upwards, we do end up getting those little fine lines. Concealer will settle under there. So the moment that you apply the powder, that area is going to be, think of it this way. This is the best analogy I've used to explain it. And at that point, people get it. If you have flour, baby powder, cornstarch at home, do me a favor when you get a chance, grab a paper towel, pour some oil on there, and then take a tablespoon of the powder. Pour it on top, give it a second. Once it settles, you'll see the flour is cakey and clumpy in the areas with the oils. Basically what's happening under the eye. So it's not for everyone, but we all want that same outcome. We all want that highlighted, bright, youthful, awake, and we can all achieve that. We just have to approach it slightly differently, but at the end, I think it's easier. Now I'm gonna show you how to chisel your cheeks. This is what my cheeks look like. There's some definition, but there's not a lot. But there's a way that you can make it look way more sunk in and make it look like. For this, you can use a powder or a cream, but I will say a cream works best, especially a stick. And I'm gonna use the pink lips because it's what's in front of me and I've really been liking this formula. A cream is most definitely going to work best because it makes it easier to blend and manipulate. You're able to control it a little better than a powder. Sometimes a powder can blow it out of proportion and we don't want that. So I'm gonna go ahead, I'm not gonna bring it all the way out. I'm gonna kinda down here. To blend this out, I recommend a brush. You can use a sponge if you want to, but with a brush, I find you're able to see what you're doing a little better and have a little more control. Sometimes with the sponge, if you can't see because of how chunky the baby is, you might overdo it. You don't wanna overdo it if you're trying to slim down your face and or chisel the cheeks and give yourself that sunken in under cheekbone look that all the celebrities are doing in the red carpet. There have been people on social media that'll show you where you need to like do your contour line and then bring it down, and it just why? It's not that complicated. So I'll grab a brush. This is my Pinnacle foundation by Anissa Beauty. By the way, she's dirty. Yes, she is, because I do this often. And if you're judging me, girl, I know you do not wash your brushes every single day, so stop it. I love you anyway. I'm gonna press the bronzer stick situation. I'm gonna press that in, pressing back and forth and moving it up. You don't wanna bring it down. You want this area here to look sunken in like this. So your best bet is to bring it up higher versus down. Do not worry about this area. I'll show you. And I like this brush because it's a triangle. You get a nice straight line to work with, and I can see exactly what the heck I'm doing. See? So you just kind of like keep blending. Don't worry, it looks harsh, but it'll go away. And this is just for contour purposes. This is not like bronzing or anything. We would go in with bronzer afterward, but this is how you manipulate the way that your face looks with makeup. This is why makeup is so fun. I'm going to press and pull into the hairline. I'm showing you this part, but like really, this has nothing to do with chiseling your cheekbones. It's just, might as well get it done while we're at it. And here we have it. You have a natural looking bronze kind of effect to the skin. It looks very radiant, but at the same time, it's gradient, which is why I love using creams and powders together. You just have to be really careful with how you're doing that. When you go in with your bronzer, you don't want to overdo it. You just kind of want to set what you already did and then add a little more gradients. I'm gonna use my Marc Jacobs. I think this is discontinued, the Tantastic 104, because it's so freaking good and it smells good. So I am lightly just kind of like brushing the bronzer on. This bronzer we will bring along the jawline. I'm gonna grab a small detailed brush. This is an A506, also by BK Beauty, because you guys know I'm obsessed with the brushes. And then I'm gonna grab a complexion product. Totally up to you what you wanna use. I'll give you a few options. You can do the e.l.f. putty color corrector if you have a shade that is light enough. It needs to be slightly lighter than your actual complexion, so you shouldn't be using your foundation if it's a spot-on shade match. You can use the concealer that you used for under the eye, or you can use another concealer that is not too bright but is slightly lighter. So in this case, I am going to use 60NN by Urban Decay because I have a brighter one, which is the one that I applied under the eye, and then one that totally matches my skin complexion. And I am going to do this right here. And with my brush, the very edge of the brush, I am going to begin to tap this in and kind of blend. All right, and then that little bit of concealer I was able to blend out, we've sculpted, it's looking real chiseled, like effortless. And then we are gonna apply some powder, no worry. And then I'm gonna grab that same powder I used to brighten under the eye. Only a little bit, do not overdo it because then it'll look crazy. And I'll lightly set that itty bitty amount of concealer. Now my cheeks are way more defined. They look sunken in, lifted, just we've basically restructured our bone structure, but it all comes together when you apply the rest of the face. So let me show you what it looks like. All right, you guys, and this is what it's going to look like in the end. It doesn't look heavy. It's not dry. It's not cakey. It's not settling. The under eyes are nice and bright. We've covered up our imperfections without putting so much effort, without having to try to figure out what shade do I use purple? Do I use green? Do I use salmon? I don't have to worry about any of that. We took the complex part out of makeup and we just made makeup fun again. I hope you've enjoyed these 3 tips on how to perfect your makeup, and I hope you find it useful. If you choose to incorporate these and give it a try in your makeup routine, please come back and let me know how it went. I'm so curious, but at the same time, really excited for you. You already know we need to do our channel members shout out. Say hello to my G Squad. This group of people here on screen along with me are absolutely amazing. They are supporting the channel at a higher level by joining channel memberships. They've unlocked exclusive perks like YouTube providing them with their very own badge, as well as highlighting every single one of their comments in the comments section. They have access to their very own community page where they'll access additional content as well as some quizzes and polls and stuff like that behind the scenes. So if you're ever interested in joining channel memberships, all you really need to do is hit the join button below any of my videos and you're good to go. Now YouTube is gonna recommend your next video based on your watch history. I'll recommend another video filled with way more beauty content, so I hope you consider checking those out, and I'll see you guys on the next video.